Yes, I do. In 2018, when we started sports wagering, the state of Mississippi only allows wagering on premise, and we allow professional and collegiate sports and anything that the executive director authorizes. We kept it simple right out of the gate because we wanted to get comfortable in our ability to regulate that. And so the properties, in my opinion, have done an extremely good job of marketing and making their sports book an attractive offer for the patrons in the surrounding states to come, because at that time we were the only ones who had legal sports wagering. Since then, our revenues have gone from 158 million in 2018 to 370 in 2019. And even given the pandemic and 70 days of closure, we were at 365 million wagered in 2020. So, yes, I think the properties in the market has done very well here.
I do think the market has achieved the goals set forth by regulation. And in some instances, I think here in Iowa, we are exceeding the goals. Initially, not so much. I think they're currently in Iowa, or previously in Iowa, there were limitations as to how someone could register for an online sports account. They had to go into a casino, and that requirement has sunset. It was only a requirement for 18 months, and we're seeing rapid expansion here as that regulation has lessened, in that there are a number of people now that are trying different online sports companies that they didn't have access to previously. And so we're also seeing, I think, a number of other opportunities for these online sports companies to expand, in that they're in many markets, and a number of the jurisdictions are accepting certain internal controls. So in other words, if internal controls that may be approved in one state, those controls are being accepted in other jurisdictions. And so I think we're seeing the regulations that are more favorable to a lot of the online sports companies. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, it's allowed for the companies to get licensed quickly and launch quickly. And this type of activity has been fairly successful in the states to this point in time.
I think Pennsylvania has been successful in achieving its regulatory goals. Consistent with our authorizing legislation, we wanted to put in place a legal, safe betting environment for people in Pennsylvania to wager on sports. And we wanted to do so in a way that would generate revenue for the Commonwealth. I think we've been exceeding expectations on both counts. You need only look at our most recent experience with the Super Bowl to see that revenue has increased, and so have the number of players. We saw a 75% increase in this Super Bowl in the amount of money that was wagered over last year. And we also saw a substantial increase in the number of players. We currently have 15 retail and 12 online sportsbook offerings in Pennsylvania, and we expect to add more in the future. So we think that the future for sports wagering here in Pennsylvania is really bright. Our year-over-year revenue figures have been increasing. Our month-over-month revenue figures have been increasing. So I think that we're off to a solid start here in Pennsylvania. And, we're really particularly proud of that during a time of pandemic. We've been able to launch additional retail and online sites, and we've been able to do that even while a lot of the regulatory team has been working from home. We've also been able to continue generating revenue for both our operators and for the Commonwealth at a time when some of our land-based casinos have been forced to close as a result of the pandemic.
As many people know, the division was preparing for the authorization of sports wagering for a very long time prior to us going live in June of 2018. The initial actions of the state of New Jersey started in preparation for how sports wagering would be regulated in essentially 2011 and 2012, almost 10 years ago. And we studied many jurisdictions. We principally looked at what we thought were strong regulatory jurisdictions in sports wagering who had long-time experience with sports wagering. And those jurisdictions included Nevada and the United Kingdom, as well as others. In fact, our first draft of regulations, which was part of the litigation with the leagues and the Justice Department, were prepared as early as 2012. And of course, they were put on hold at the time of the litigation. So the New Jersey regulatory model, though, never envisioned a turnkey acceptance of regulations by other jurisdictions. We made a very early decision to take what we felt was best practices by those jurisdictions that were identified by us as being strong regulators in this area. But we also identified at that time what we felt were weaknesses that should not be incorporated into the future expansion of sports wagering in the United States and in New Jersey. And so we made edits to what they had in place with the belief that this new business opportunity of legalized sports wagering would be much more in the United States than just simple amenity to offering what was offered in casinos in the States today. And we really felt that this was going to be a expansive opportunity for gaming in the United States, certainly in New Jersey, and then we wanted to take maximum advantage of it, but by having a really robust series of regulations that would allow for growth, innovation, and expansion well beyond what we felt was the model that existed in the United States at that time, I should say. And I think in the end, where we are today, we made the right decision. So the New Jersey model of regulation, I think, is probably one that can be readily adopted by any jurisdiction in the United States. And I think some of the safeguards we have put into our regulations are being looked at as we speak now when you see things being done in the United Kingdom, where they're looking at tightening up their regulatory controls on online gambling in addition to sports wagering. So we've already have tried and true practices, even though we remain the new kids on the block. We always knew that we're the new kids on the block. I think the United Kingdom goes back like hundreds of years in sports wagering. Obviously, the experiences in Nevada go back 50. Our experiences are only almost soon to be 3 years. But with that, we knew that we had to have a system that allowed for innovation, that allowed for adaptation, and created an ability for further study and to changes that were necessary to be made on the fly. And I think to date, we've proven that we can do that, and we have been successful in that. So as of today, we now have in New Jersey a total of 12 retail sports books, and we have 21 authorized mobile websites. And again, they span not only between our casinos, but our racetracks in the state of New Jersey. Our revenue and handle numbers have been strong, and that remains very optimistic for us. We'll see where that goes. It certainly has surpassed any revenue numbers that we anticipated. We knew it would be strong, but we've certainly never thought it would be this big. We always knew that New Jersey's market would challenge to be a leader in the country. We are now the leader. I don't think we're going to stay the leader forever because we're only the 11th largest state in the United States. Population drives gambling, and there's a wonderful opportunity for states who are not in this business yet to grow into this business, and it will not surprise us that their population and revenue numbers will exceed ours. But my point to the other states is that revenue and handle numbers are just one factor to follow if you want to be a leader in this industry. And this industry requires you to be a leader in setting up strong regulatory models and dealing with the challenges and problems in the future. And that's one area where New Jersey will always be a leader in the United States.